1. I'm the overnight cashier at a Sunco gas station in Northeast Ohio, and I've been having some weird experiences spending 40+ hours a week in here alone all through the night. The store hasn't always been open 24 hours, and I'm only the second cashier to be on this shift. The first was fired after a month or so I don't really have anyone else to question about their experiences. My first strange encounter happened about a month ago, sometime mid-December. It didn't actually happen inside the store though, but across the street. I spent a lot of time looking out the window, and one night I noticed a figure in the CVS parking lot across the street. This is pretty normal since they're also open 24 hours. But this figure stood out because it was a completely black silhouette, despite the area being pretty well lit. I also noticed it looked like it was walking, but it wasn't moving anywhere, almost like a glitch in a game playing a walking animation while standing idle. I stood and watched him for at least 5 minutes, before a customer came in and drew my attention away from the window. When I turned back, it was gone, despite me only looking away for less than 30 seconds. This is not nearly enough time for anyone to completely walk out of the line of sight without sprinting. After that, I didn't have any significant experiences until last night. Sure, there have been some small things, but nothing I'd be able to say couldn't just be noises from machines inside or drafts from the winter weather. Last night was different though. I was sitting behind the counter watching YouTube videos on my phone when I heard the ding noise from the sensor on the door to let us know when someone walks in. I quickly looked up to see who entered, but no one was there. I walked out from the cage. The cage is what we call the closed-off area that the register is in behind glass, and walked outside to see if someone had just walked off after opening the door, but no one was there. I should note this is a pull door that couldn't just be blown open, and has never went off on its own before. That's some spooky shit, but I brushed it off and continued to work. Then, at about 3 a.m., I went to go clean the bathrooms, but when I was approaching the supply closet to grab the mop, I heard what I can only describe as a goose honking, if it was played through some sort of demonic filter. I've heard tons of weird noises here at night from coolers, coffee machines, icy machines, and the pipes, but never a noise like that. It was really loud and clear, but the only machine near me was a lottery vending machine that I've never heard make any noises beside typical dispenser whirring. I have a history with geese, so this ghost goose noise really fucked with me. I spent the rest of the night locked in the cage, and not coming out until someone else was in the store. I haven't experienced anything strange today, but I felt like I should make a post to have my past experiences recorded, and have somewhere to tell if anything else happens. Me and my friends have been looking for somewhere to try a Ouija board. Maybe we should bring it here. Update: I'm at work, and there's a thunderstorm going on. I've been seeing lightning and hearing long rolls of thunder all night. I was going to have a smoke when I heard a faint deep growl-like sound. I of course assumed it was the thunder, but as I opened the door it got quieter. And when the door shut behind me, it stopped. I opened the door back up and heard it again for a split second before it stopped. After I smoked and was helping a customer behind the counter, I thought I saw someone walk in the corner of the store beside me. When I looked to see who was over there, no one was around. Just me and the customer in front of me in the store. This might have been some sort of weird reflection though, because it was through a glass window. And before anyone says, if the noise was coming from inside, you'd know. I want to point out I'm deaf in one ear, so just like how someone with one ear can't see depth well, I don't hear depth well. Another update. Tonight while wandering the small store alone, I heard a very loud and clear sharp inhale. It sounded like the type of inhale someone would take right before they started yelling. For a second, it didn't faze me. It's winter, and most people have the sniffles at least. But then I remembered that I was alone in the store. This scared the shit out of me. It might not be related, but shortly after I found my key wouldn't unlock the door leading behind the counter, and I had to climb over the counter to get back there. This lasted for about 20 minutes of me playing with the lock before, despite not working seconds prior, my key suddenly turned and the lock opened. 2. Something happened today that made me think to make this post, but don't get your hopes up too high because nothing insane happens in my house. But there is absolutely something here, and it seems to be tied to me directly. I'd suggest only reading this if you have enough interest in unexplained activity to read through some boring details. This is a lot of content, but I'm really just trying to give the highlights because I think they begin to relate to one another in an interesting way. So I have lived in a family of 5 my whole life: mom, dad, 2 siblings, then me. I'm the youngest in the house, now at 21 years old with my brother and sister now having moved out. I mention this just because I think maybe things have been going on in my house for a lot longer than 5 years. But because there have always been so many people around the house, we ignored the noises and missing things, attributing them to family. The first time I really noticed anything was when my siblings were both in college. I have always been known as the irresponsible member of my family, for my knack of misplacing things. One such time was when I was 16 and couldn't find my wallet. I have one drawer in my house where I drop my keys and wallet upon re-entry to my house. I developed this habit at 16 and have repeated it since. Promise this is all relevant. One day I went to get my wallet out of said drawer and it wasn't there. I searched my car, I searched my entire house. I went to a friend's house where I had been at that weekend. Absolutely nothing. I looked all week and found nothing. One day upon returning from school, I opened up the drawer to throw my keys in it, and on top of everything else in the drawer sits my wallet. Perfectly placed, parallel to the sides of the drawer. Great, my mom found my wallet, right? Nope. I asked her. She didn't find it and had no idea it was there. Neither did any other member of my family. It just showed up right where it was supposed to be, in the drawer I had torn apart 5 times throughout that week. The next week, my phone disappears under similar circumstances. Once again, I search for a week, tear my whole house apart, tear my car apart, nothing. Frustrated, I go downstairs to play guitar. As I'm approaching my amp, I see the power light flip on. Bewildered, I feel the switch on the back of the amp, thinking there must have been a power surge of some kind to power the amp. However, the switch has been physically switched to the on position. So now, freaked out, I nope out of playing guitar and decide to walk back upstairs, where I hear the sound of a phone vibrating. I look around and find it underneath a chair in the living room, a call ringing from a number I do not recognize. I answer the phone. Nothing on the other end. I hang up. I should also mention that my dog is let in and out of the house frequently without any of us opening the door, usually when I'm home alone. For example, I was playing guitar a few days ago and didn't want to hurt his ears, so I let him outside. I finish playing 40 minutes or so later, go yell to him at the door for him to come in, and he approaches behind me from in the house. This shit happens a few times a week probably. So for a while these things are seemingly only happening to me. However, my parents start to believe me over the next few years as things start happening to them too. My dad goes down to the basement at 5 a.m. to feed the wood stove, and there are 3 rolls of completely unfurled toilet paper laying in the middle of the floor. My mom stands outside her car in the garage, and it turns over on its own, shit like that. Something particularly bizarre that occurred over the period of a year was what is now referred to in my home as the ping pong incident. I had a very tight-knit friend group in high school, and all of us would hang out in small, varying fragments of that group in different combinations of people. One time early in my senior year, my dad was upset with me because he found 3 ping pong balls outside our basement door and assumed my friends and I had been playing beer pong without their knowledge. I genuinely had no idea where they came from. We don't have a ping pong table. But my friends were weird, so I thought maybe this was their work as some kind of postmodern prank. They all denied it. The next time I had friends over, 3 totally separate friends from the last ping pong incident. I went outside the next morning to check for any joint roaches or anything else that could get us in trouble with my parents, were they to find it. I looked down in the grass, and there are 3 ping pong balls in the form of a triangle in my yard. Again, no ping pong table or balls in my house. I thought that this was some sort of conspiracy by my friends, but all of them vehemently denied it, and still do to this day. This continued every time I had a guest overnight at the house, until I was in college. After I left for college, the activity ceased almost completely. Upon my return for Christmas break, it picked back up. Doors would open or close at random, the TV in the other room would turn on its own while my family and I are in the living room. Just small things like that. These smaller activities have been going on for a long time, and they don't bother or scare me. However, one thing that happened a few weeks ago did. I was recording a Snapchat video of my adorable dog and my brother's cat, which I was watching while home alone. Upon playback, I immediately heard a whispering, raspy voice in the background. I immediately sent it to 3 friends, simply instructing them to turn up the volume and listen and tell me what they hear. All 3 immediately confirmed my suspicions about a voice on the recording. 2 of them saying they heard it say, "Jesus," and one simply insisting it said, "Yes." One of them also pointed out that in the video, when the voice sounds, my brother's cat turns his head in response immediately. This was the first experience to actually scare me, so the reason I'm finally writing all this out tonight. Earlier this week I received my parking pass in the mail, and intentionally put it in the drawer where I keep my wallet and keys. Yesterday I checked to make sure it was still there, and it was. Tonight I went to get it out, and it was gone. Asked around my family, no one moved it or has touched it. Tore apart the drawer, nothing. It disappeared the night before I leave, as if something doesn't want me to be able to go. Now I'm waiting and hoping for it to show up in the drawer, unexplained, just as my wallet did 5 years ago. Thanks for reading. 3. It's funny. When I was a kid, my house was haunted and I had experiences there, but no threatening feelings except once. This story isn't about that. I've always been scared of paranormal activities since I started going to a Christian church, since my freshman year of high school. I've always been a little pansy when it came to these things. So the church I attended had interns from all over the world, usually about 3 to 6 at a time for a year. They usually help out with events, setting up youth nights and whatnot. What my church did was rent out an apartment to house the interns, so we called it the intern house. All the past interns have said they experienced little weird things, nothing of concern, and they would share it with us sometimes. The girls had their own studio they would share in the back patio above the garage, and the boys had the upstairs to themselves, since 2 of the permanent residents are guys. One night, a couple of friends decided to sleep over and watch a movie. And did we choose the wrong movie, as things got worse from there. We decided to watch Paranormal Activity, not sure which one. In the movie, there was a little child who names his imaginary friend Toby, which turned out to be an evil entity. Jokingly, we all named the ghost Toby as well, just to scare the girls and other students who would come around for our weekly boys' night. We were dumb to do that. After that night, things got worse. Just to give you an idea, The upstairs had 2 smaller rooms for the permanent residents, one for David, my best friend, and one for Adam, David's childhood friend, as they both worked for the church, so they lived there, and took care of the house during the summer when the interns were gone. So whenever I spent the night, I would stay in the master bedroom, where there was a bed and a bunk bed, and the bathroom. I have no idea why I chose to sleep here after experiencing activity very often. This is my personal experience. At night before bed, I would go shower and brush my teeth in the public bathroom David and Adam shared. As the first time I used the master bathroom, I got scared. When I showered, the toilet flushed itself. Nothing alarming, but still weird nonetheless. It freaked me out a bit, like I said. I'm a pansy when it comes to this kind of stuff. I tried to finish my shower quickly. Now, I've read somewhere that if you acknowledge entities, you feed it, and it gets stronger. I'm guessing this was the case. After I started freaking out a little and rushed my shower, some stuff fell off the counter. And at that point, I said, F it. I washed all the soap off, grabbed my clothes and towel, and ran to David's room butt naked. I explained to him what had happened, and he laughed at me. Same with Adam. So we all just hung out in David's room for a bit until we all went to bed. Now, I am the type of person who hates sleeping in complete silence. So they had a room fan, which I turned on to make some noise. Sometimes it would turn off by itself and be unplugged. This was when I lost my shit. The door would open and close, and the toilet would flush itself again. I was not having it. Like what every man would do, I grabbed the blanket from the top bunk and made a fort and played Christian music while playing Rise of the Guardians on my laptop to help me fall asleep. I love that movie for some reason, maybe because it was what helped me get through the dreadful nights. And every single time I slept over, the same things would happen. And after a while, I just got used to it, as they became a routine for me. Eventually I moved out of state and came back to visit after 2 years. This is where things got crazy. These were not experiences from me, but it's what Adam had told me. When I came back, I had told David and Adam that I missed the intern house, and I mentioned Toby as a joke as well. Adam had this look on his face, as if I had said, "He who must not be named." David kind of shrugged it off, not really caring. This is what Adam said had happened. There was this girl living at the house in the girl's studio by herself, as there were no interns at the time. Whenever she would be alone, she felt as if something was watching her, maliciously. She never liked staying there by herself. Whenever she was in her room, things would get knocked off. This time it apparently felt angry. Not like how it did in the past. One day she started walking out, and there was a loud sound and things fell off dressers like in movies. They had one of those heavy rear projection TVs everyone had in the early 2000s, and it apparently fell off the stand right after she walked by. She was so scared she cried and called the pastors. When they came in the house, they all shared a feeling that something evil was in the house. So they exorcised the whole house, and things were okay after that. They said that the entity got power from being acknowledged, and how everyone gave it a name. As Adam explained all this to me, I was looking at this odd-looking frame he has. It was like a picture frame, except it was a box and had 2 little sailor dolls in it. I looked at how weird it was, and to my surprise, one of the doll's arms moved. I asked Adam if anything strange happens after the exorcism, and he told me the only thing he experiences anymore were the dolls in his box, and how they would move from time to time. If any of you guys are experiencing anything out of the norm, don't give it a name, or acknowledge it, as it'll get stronger. 4. I remember very clearly what I saw. It was Easter. I was going to bed after visiting my family. I was 8 or so, and only recently started to feel comfortable with sleeping in the dark. When I laid in bed, all the lights were supposed to be off. But I saw an image of what looked like a skeleton of a fish thing above the closet door facing me, glowing fluorescent green. I was so terrified that I couldn't move for what felt like hours. I was afraid to stop looking at it. It appeared to be stuck on the wall, unmoving like a decoration. I checked the window eventually, and didn't see anything outside that could have caused it. I even drew the blinds, and it stayed. I cried quietly in fear and eventually passed out. Thing was, after a sleepy day at elementary school, not telling anyone out of fear that I would sound crazy, and prayed it wouldn't happen again, it was there that night, and the next, and the next, and the next. There were a couple of stickers on top of the closet door, and I learned that they were glow in the dark, but absolutely not strong enough to make so much light, and especially not that pattern. I slept in the same room as my brother, we still do, in the same beds, in the same spots, and he never saw this. At least, I never thought he did. He was never poorly rested or talked about anything strange in our room. After a few weeks, I noticed its glow getting dimmer. It grew dim irregularly, like parts of it would be gone before others. It kept glowing dimmer as weeks went on, after I got used to it and gave it a name. Can't remember it, just remember I did. And by next Easter, it had dissipated entirely. I wonder sometimes if I just imagined all that. If that whole year never existed. If my mind was playing tricks on me. I don't know. I truly don't. I had other experiences in my bedroom. I used to have nightmares as a kid that would wake me up in the dead of night. Sometimes while trying to focus and stay calm, trying to work myself out of the thoughts so I could leave my room and go to the bathroom, I would hear knocks on my door. 3 knocks that didn't disturb anyone else. This happened about 4 times. The first, I cowered under my blankets and waited until I either passed out or overcame my fear to leave. The second, I tried to whisper hello. Nothing happened, of course. The third time, much the same, but I had a new plan on what to do the next time. When it finally happened for the 4th time, I loudly exclaimed for whatever was there to come in, trying to sound as welcoming as I knew how to sound. The knocks never happened again. Has the knocking thing happened to anyone else? Does anyone have anything on that glowing dead fish thing? I really don't know what to make of anything. It's not super exciting, but it's my story. 5. This is a true story that happened to my father about 13 years ago. That day my father was so excited to be taking a shop class at a community college. The catch was he had to travel over the mountain to attend it. He asked to borrow my sister's car so he could attend the seminar for the weekend. He headed off early that winter morning for a full, fun weekend. At about 10 a.m. that morning, I got a call saying my father was being flown to Utah Valley Regional Hospital. He was in critical condition and was rushed into emergency surgery to fix a broken femur that had projected outside the leg, collapsed lungs, and other major injuries. It was touch and go for 4 weeks while he was trying to heal. During this time, we had the car towed to the local impound yard. I went with my mother to clean out the car and meet the insurance adjuster. As we were cleaning out the car, I noticed the back window was completely shattered, and the front driver's seat belt appeared to be cut. It was as if someone had come along and cut the seat belt about where the clavicle bone would meet the seatbelt. I double-checked to see if I could see any frayed edges, but there were none. I know my sister at the time never kept a seatbelt cutter in the car, nor could I find any scissors in the car. The hospital told us that the emergency crew had found my father laying in the snow, which had sent him into hypothermia, and had in the process saved his life from his severe internal and external injuries. It appeared that my father had a stroke. He either had the stroke, which caused him to go off the cliff, or had fallen asleep at the wheel, and the accident had caused the stroke. They said if he had not flown out the back window, his injuries would have been twice as bad, and he would have been dead on impact. We got a copy of the police report on the accident. The report states that a man had flagged down a passing car for help. The driver of the vehicle saw the man and saw tire tracks going over the edge of the cliff. He decided to stop and see what assistance he could help with. He followed this man and looked down the cliff to my father laying in the snow, all bloody and injured. The car had been rolled and got stopped by a boulder 250 feet down. If it hadn't stopped him, he would have fallen another 250 feet down in the river. My father had flown out of the back window during the accident and had landed in the snow. The man who stopped tried to call for help, but his cell had no service. The man who flagged him down offered to stay while he ran down the mountain to get help. When the emergency crew got there, he was still with my father and showed them where to find him. They immediately attended to my father. Then, thinking this man was part of the accident, they went to find him to treat him as well, but he was nowhere to be found. They looked all around and said the only footprints they could see were the ones the emergency personnel had made down the cliffside. They all gave a description of the man that was staying with my father in the report. The description was very odd to me. Months later, my father was finally able to come home with home health care. I decided to ask my father if he remembered the accident. He said he remembers most of it, but not his time in the hospital. I asked him if he had cut his seatbelt, and with what. He said he never cut his seatbelt, but had flown out the back window during the accident. He said he tried to call for help, but he had no service. He also said that his best friend, and who was also an uncle a year older than him, was with him through the entire accident, from just before he went off the cliff until he saw emergency personnel. He sat with him, comforting him, as he went in and out of consciousness. The description on the police report also fit my great-uncle's description. I remember growing up, spending many days at his family home during the summers. My father and Uncle Farrell were very close. Farrell had passed away a year earlier from the time of my father's accident of brain cancer. My father was devastated when it happened. Not only did seeing him at the accident help him live, but it also helped my father heal from the loss of his best friend. We now believe Uncle Farrell is my father's guardian angel. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to 5 True Paranormal Stories, episode 70. Thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Just want to give you guys an update on my little glitch experience that I mentioned yesterday. For those of you who don't watch the glitch videos, I did mention an odd experience I'd had of my own that day at the end of the video in the outro. And quick recap, what it was there's a local store called Candyland, and it's been there for a few years, and I always remember it being spelled Candyland, 2 words spelled as you'd think, C-A-N-D-Y, land, right? Except when I passed by it on Thursday, I glanced over, and suddenly it was still called Candyland, but it was like the Earth 2 version. It was spelled with a capital K, and it was written as one word. So I was a bit confused about this, because I was sure I'd passed by it the previous day, and it was spelled the way I'd always remembered. So it kind of bugged me a bit. And after I'd mentioned it in the video yesterday, I thought to myself, oh, hang on a minute. I could check Google Earth. I could go on Google Earth and go into the street view on that street. And sure enough, I did. I went on, and it looks like maybe last year was the last time those images were updated. And it appears that, in fact, yeah, they've literally just changed the name of the store, or rather changed the spelling of the name, for some really weird reason that I can't quite work out. Because it's been called, because in the Google Street View image, it's spelled exactly the way I've always remembered it as being. So I'm just trying to work out what the reason might be. My brother-in-law suggested, my brother-in-law was kind enough to actually take me down to my phototherapy session with for my psoriasis treatments today, and he mentioned that he thought it might be a tax dodge. I'm not sure about that one, but it wouldn't actually surprise me. Okay, and with that I better head off. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.